All right, looks like it's kind of slowing down here, so I think we're going to go ahead and get started so we can get wrapped up in time for the Southeast District meeting later on tonight. And, again, thank you for joining us. This is the first six fisheries informational meetings. This is a statewide introduction as well as our state Nebraska Aquatic Habitat Program. Getting started here. Myself, Aaron Blank, I'm a Fisheries Assistant Division Administrator. Be giving a talk here kind of just on some Fisheries Division updates and information. And then I'm going to pass it off about halfway through here to Jeff Jackson, who is our Aquatic Habitat Program Manager. Information's up there. It's going to be here at the end of the presentation also for everybody to get a hold of. So just first off, just want to say thanks for tuning in. It's a beautiful day out there. Hopefully some people are watching while they're out and about outside even, but really do appreciate everybody taking the time to hop on here. Hopefully learn a little bit of information and have time to answer some questions for everybody. With that, I want to say last year we kind of had this Q&A box through Zoom. This year, we're going to handle questions through the chat function. So usually it's typically on the bottom or top of your screen, but there'll be a little sign that says chat. That will allow you to ask questions. And we have a group of other fisheries employees that are on today that will be gathering that information and putting it into a spreadsheet, and then here at the end, where Jeff and I will talk for roughly a half an hour, and then we'll get to those questions at the end and try to answer everything live here. Just to start off here, and we've seen this, you've watched these presentations in the past. This is our district map. You can see here we had 5 districts, and just this year, shifting some people around, we actually created a new North Central division. This was a needed thing to do. We only had one fish management employee in the Valentine area. We'll actually end up getting 2 people out there now. Should be able to get some better coverage in that Valentine area and that North Central area. With that, got other public meetings tonight. At 7:30, the Southeast will give a talk, the Southeast District. And then tomorrow we have the South Central at 6 p.m., Southwest at 7:30. And Wednesday night we'll have the Northeast at 6 p.m. and the Northwest at 7:30. Just remember, these are all Central Time. But would love to have everybody tune in and hear what's going on across the entire state. You can see on the bottom left side there, that conference and sessions, a little infographic there. That's our YouTube page. All of these will be recorded and put up on that NGPC conferences and sessions YouTube page at a later date. So if you missed something or you know somebody that missed it, should be able to tune back in whenever you need to. Just quick on some hatchery highlights here. This is a fish management kind of meeting here this week, but we couldn't do what we do, and you wouldn't be able to catch the fish that you catch without our hatchery program. And so just some quick highlights. We stocked around 60 million fish last year. That is spread across the whole state of Nebraska to nearly 300 water bodies, and we stock a whole lot of species, 22 species last year. So just really impressive what we do out of the hatchery system here at Nebraska Game and Parks, and we're really proud of the fact of those numbers. Another big hatchery highlight here. This is Valentine Fish Hatchery, and going to be getting a big addition there, and going to have it's about a 11,000 square foot addition that's going to be a RAS building, which is a recirculating aquaculture system is what it stands for. Essentially, this is a blueprint of it. We're going to be able to grow fish inside, and there's a lot of benefits to this. one, it's a pretty small area. It's a pretty small blueprint. Two, where it really beneficial on water savings. As RAS is recirculating, you don't use a lot of water in these systems, and you can really benefit your water usage, as well as helps prevent any AIS since it's a closed system. We don't have to worry about anything. It could be fish disease, could end up being zebra mussels, could be a lot of different things. And so really looking forward to this edition. This is what the North Platte, we've kind of got a mini RAS building in our North Platte fish hatchery. Those tanks actually in the background got some about 10 to 14-inch wipers that we're raising here that'll be stocked out this next spring. So that's another big advantage is we can raise fish throughout the entirety of the year. We can regulate water temperatures, we can regulate feed. And so really looking forward to that addition. Another big thing on the hatchery side of things, which we're really ramping up. This is the first real big week for trout stockings across the state. So you can see numbers there, about 63,500 trout going out in March to 46 different water bodies. We'll continue that into early April. We'll be stocking an additional about 25,000 trout in 25 different water bodies. So statewide distribution. If the weather stays like it is, it's going to be a great spring to get out and chase trout, in this cool water. Hopefully we'll continue to get some nice days and get some people out there and get your family, kids, anybody new. It's a great opportunity. While you're out there, you might see a sign like there is there on the left side of the screen. This is a continuation that we've had in place now for about a year and a half. But we are gathering information from our trout anglers. And so we have a survey that we'd ask you guys if you please fill it out. And that information is vital to us and the management of what we do with trout stockings in the future. So if you're at one of those lakes and you don't see a sign, there's also the link if you go to our website, outdoornebraska.gov, and you can search fish stockings. And once you get to that fish stocking page, the trout survey will be right there. And so, again, appreciate it if you guys would get on. If you fish for trout, get on and fill out the survey and let us know your thoughts on the stocking program and kind of just fill out that survey and we'll go from there. Another thing that we're really proud of here within the division is our youth fishing program. And so Larry Pape, who's right there in the video that you're going to see here shortly, has built a really good youth fishing program. We got a lot of youth fishing instructors, volunteer, that are essential to Larry's program and essential to spreading the word of fishing to youth all across the state. And this program could not be done, couldn't be successful without these youth fishing instructors. And I'm just going to share a quick video here from Larry talking a little bit about what the youth fishing instructors do. Picking up here on the chat, there wasn't any audio on that. I apologize if there wasn't audio. If you really wanted to hear that, it is posted on our Nebraska Game and Parks Facebook page. Essentially, what Larry was getting at is there's some opportunities here in this upcoming spring. You can see on the top left for these youth fishing instructor classes, and these instructor classes really important. Even if it's something that you're thinking about that you think you would like to try or see what they're all about, I'd encourage you to show up at one of these and hear about the program. It's a great way to give back. It's a great way if you like to introduce youth into fishing or just want to find a way to help out. Larry would appreciate it, and all of us here from Nebraska Game and Parks would appreciate it. With those, Larry hosts a bunch of these community fishing nights across the state. You can see the picture there on the right side is what you would see on our calendar on the website of our outdoornebraska.gov. If you search community fishing at that website, it'll take you right to the calendars page. You can see where all of these community fishing nights are going to happen. Would encourage you to bring people to them. If you sign up for the youth fishing instructor classes, maybe you'll be working some of these, but that's a great way to spend a night with the family and get out and learn how to fish. With that, this year we're going to try a little something different. We're going to provide ask a biologist at least one night in each district. Again, it's kind of what it says, just an informal time to sit down with a fisheries biologist. You just want to talk fishing, you got questions. We want to be out there, meet you guys face to face, and just have good conversation about what we're doing. So if you tune in to the rest of the district meeting talks, everybody will have a slide there with where they're going to have their Ask a Biologist night, as well as the location. And so would encourage you, if you want to get out and meet us, we'd love to talk to you, love to answer questions, or love to just talk fishing with you. Aquatic Invasive Species Program. We've kind of mentioned this before, but it's really important just to continue to bring up this message. We've done a really good job preventing aquatic invasive species in the state of Nebraska, and it's a credit to what Chris Starr and all of his staff do to keep this way. And so it is that overall strategy is to prevent, contain, and control. We do this through a variety of different methods: watercraft inspections. We do aquatic plant surveys, aquatic plant management. We do early detection for zebra mussels. We've done things such as bait shop inspections. We've had to go into pet stores and deal with issues there. And then we do a lot of outreach, education. And so last year, the biggest thing that we do is inspect watercraft before they're launching. The best way that we can prevent zebra mussels or other aquatic plants to get spread around is to have boots on the ground and talk to our anglers, inform them, and then just make sure nobody's transporting this stuff. So you can see there just about 7,000 watercrafts inspected in 2025. Inspectors will be present again this year. Sure, if you guys have been out and about, you've probably ran into an AIS employee the last few years. Just encourage you to stop and talk to them. Let them learn a little bit from you, and hopefully you guys can learn a little bit from them. And then always remember to clean, drain, and dry your boats before and after your trips, and do the part that you can do to prevent the spread. And we really appreciate that. And as always, if you think you find some sort of aquatic invasive species, or you just want to request some information about certain things, the phone number there and the email for our AIS program listed right there at the bottom of the screen. Would really appreciate it. We get a lot of tips from some of that, and no question or comment is ever not seen or responded to here. So this is one thing we haven't done a whole lot of or talked about, is our Missouri River program. And I just wanted to bring this up. There They are a really important part of the division, and something that we need to get out there a little bit more about what they do. And they primarily in the past 20 years have done a lot of pallid sturgeon recovery work. And this includes stuff as mark recapture studies and repeated sampling to get population estimates, look at wild versus hatchery reared pallid sturgeons. They do a lot of telemetry studies across the whole Missouri River that borders Nebraska there, where they're implanting these pallid sturgeons and looking for any reproductive success. They also manage our paddlefish fishery below Gavin's Point Dam and have really started doing a lot more work up there recently and looking forward to that. And then previously, they'd done a lot of catfish research on the Missouri River. Some of that had went away for a little bit as UNL was doing a really long-term study there. And so a lot of that data had been collected by the university, and that's kind of switched back into the hands of our Missouri River program. So if it's something you guys as anglers would like to know more about, have questions about, we've tentatively, kind of thought about having some Missouri River programs or talks. And so that's something you'd be interested in, please drop it in the chat or comments to us. Something I think we could do here in the future. Another program just wanted to highlight would be our Rivers and Streams program. This is, mainly a fish management focused talk. And most of that work that we do is on ponds and reservoirs and natural lakes across the state. But this Rivers and Streams program does a lot of that same work that we're doing. They do monitor fish communities. They work on habitats and enhancements on small rivers and streams. They conduct a lot of research and most importantly, and a lot of stuff they do is threatened and endangered species conservation. So, especially in the Sandhills region, which is just a real special, unique region, these guys do an excellent job of promoting, healthy ecosystems, healthy waterways, and do what's best for those species. So again, if you'd like to learn or hear anything more about what that Rivers and Streams program does, please drop it in the chat, and we can see about if we want to add anything else to these public meetings later on down the road. With that, I'm going to pass the microphone off to Jeff Jackson, who's head of our Aquatic Habitat Program. He's just going to give a little talk here about the process that we go through to bid and do some of these aquatic habitat projects.
Yeah, thanks, Aaron, and really appreciate you joining tonight. Guess we might as well be talking fishing since our ice fishing season got cut pretty short this year. So we're working off our third aquatic habitat plan, which started in 2024. It's a 15-year plan, and it really provides a framework for us to improve access and habitat at 71 different locations across the state. And if you're interested in looking at it closer, we have it posted on our website, and that's the address down at the bottom to do that. So this is kind of an overview, kind of a status update of where we're at in the Southwest District. That third aquatic habitat plan has 14 projects, and we finished habitat shoals at Swanson and Medicine Creek. In the South Central District, we have 12 projects. We're currently under construction at Windmill, which you can observe if you're going past there on the interstate. We also did some tree clearing to improve angler access at 11 of the I-80 lakes. Southeast District, 15 projects, and we're going to be starting construction at Holmes Lake on a couple of access sites on that location. Northwest, 21 projects. We're currently designing 2 Ogallala grassland ponds. We're going to be initiating construction at Smith Lake here in about 2 to 3 weeks. And then Soldier Creek, Soldier Creek, we're just starting construction on that, and we're also going to be working on Crazy Horse Pond as well. So one of the main purposes of this presentation is to kind of give you an idea of how we start a project, how we identify which projects we're going to get started on. And one of the first questions we ask is if it's on the Aquatic Habitat Plan. And if it's not on the plan, we do have ways of addressing that. If there's an emergency or funding becomes available, we will take an opportunity to add that into the plan if we needed to. So then the whole project starts when a regional biologist decides they want to start on a project. They write a project proposal, and then our administration looks through it, looks at costs, partners, and grants that might be available. Make sure the goals align with the Aquatic Habitat Plan. One thing I'm going to delve into a little bit more is location here. I think. Okay, so between 1997 and 2024, we completed projects from one corner of the state to the other and really everywhere in between. And we really feel that's a real important aspect of our aquatic habitat uh, program. We want to do work where our anglers are at and the places that they fish. During this plan, we completed over 135 projects. We spent about 112 million, and we worked with almost 91 different partners. And it's a really important aspect is that the Game and Parks doesn't own a lot of lakes and streams around the state. So we work with a lot of cities, state, county, and federal government agencies to partner with on these projects. So another important aspect is this is really a unique program in the United States. Even though we've been operating almost 27 years, there's very few other states that have programs like ours. A few in the Midwest, one in Pennsylvania. So we're pretty unique. I'm involved in a Friends of Reservoirs work group that works on reservoirs around the country, and I see a lot of other states that really struggle with getting aquatic habitat projects and access projects done in their states because there's just a limitation on funding. They just don't have it available. So I'm really think we're really fortunate to be able to utilize this funding, and we really appreciate it. And we're plunging ahead with making sure we're making fishing and access improvements that are going to make a difference for you guys. So one of the things we really looked at closely, Bob, was we were looking at cost because it's a really important aspect of our program. Doing projects is expensive, and we bring in about $2.5 to $3 million annually with our program. And this slide is from 2021, but it really hasn't changed much since that 2021 time frame. We've raised the stamp cost 3 times It started at $5, went to $7.50 in 2007, 2010 up to $10, and then the last time we saw an increase was in 2017, and that's where we're currently at. And then the gold bar is kind of a reimbursement. Anytime we get reimbursed, it comes back into the aquatic habitat stamp money, so that's what that gold bar represents. But the more important bar really is the white bar that indicates what we're bringing in annually. So once we get a proposal from one of the biologists and we decide to go forward with it, one of the first things we look at is an engineering firm, and sometimes we complete that in-house. Most of the time, probably 80% of the time, we go outside with a consultant. And we have a process. An engineering firm is selected through a competitive process, and larger construction projects, which are we estimate over 1.9 million, go through it's called a request for proposal process, and then we select the most qualified firm. Typically, the design and permitting are completed about the same time, and most of the time that process alone takes right around 1 year. And so we go through some phases in the design. We usually start with a 20%. And throughout these phases, we're usually getting a cost estimate as well, so we can evaluate whether we're within our bounds as far as what we decided for a budget for it. And we also use that cost estimate to evaluate bids. And the permitting phase, probably not the most exciting phase, but it's a necessary evil. And this is usually where, if we have any delays in a project, this is usually where we would usually get that. The first one is a threatened and endangered species review, and that's a federal and a state level review. We also do a historical and archaeological review, and I guess I'll give you an example of a project we had at Medicine Creek, and there were Native American remains in that location, as well as a lot of dinosaur bones and Indian artifacts as well. So we had to really pick well where we were going to do our project there, and you just never know when construction might turn up something as well. So we were lucky. We didn't really have a lot of issues there. We worked in areas that we didn't have problems, but you just never know, and that's something that we are well aware of and something that we take serious. And the next one is a stormwater pollution prevention plan. And anytime we disturb more than an acre, we have to have a plan to prevent erosion on that area. An Army Corps of Engineer 404 permit. Anytime we're putting fill in a water of the U.S., we have to have a 404 permit. And then a 408 review happens if we're doing work on a core dam itself, and that typically adds another 6 months or so to a project. And then Section 401 water quality certification. Anytime we have a discharge of water, we have to have a permit to be able to do that. And then if we get through that, then we go to bidding. It typically takes about a month. Plans and specs are posted for about 3 weeks. We send out an email to contractors, and we really work hard on trying to get the lowest bid that we can. If it's not within what our engineering estimates are, we have the option to reject it and rebid it. And anybody that works on our project has to be bonded and insured. And then we get to construction, and we typically have our consultant do oversight along with our supervision as well. And then additionally help with any change orders that may come up. And I've not had a project yet that we didn't have a change order on. So typically come up. So I'm going to step you through a project that is probably coming up in the near future, and haven't got a proposal yet, but typically what we would expect there is improving angler access. It's a WMA, so we won't have access somewhat like we did at Conestoga. It's going to be a lot more primitive. We know that the boating facilities are pretty dated. They're the original ones there. They don't really accommodate a larger boat. So we're going to be improving those facilities. And one part that's interesting here is that this lake is filled in almost. It's lost almost 50% of its volume, which equates to about 2 million cubic yards. So that's the equivalent of a football field piled about 11 or 1,000 feet high. So it's pretty significant, and you really have to identify where you're going to be storing material when you start identifying how much you're going to be storing there. And then typically we've done some outlet modifications to be able to drain the reservoir completely. And if we do that, we add a considerable amount of time with the Corps of Engineers. So in the last few years, we've seen excavation and disposal increase almost 5 times the cost of that. In 2016, when we did Conestoga, we removed about 500,000 cubic yards, and we were doing that for $4 a yard. Right now, the last few projects we bid out, we're looking at about $20 a cubic yard. So just to give you an estimate, that would cost to remove that 2 million cubic yards from east wind would probably be around $40 million. So, and you saw what we had for income, about 3 million a year. So we can't even really touch that. So we really have to narrow down exactly how much and where we're going to be taking out material. And then riprap costs in 2016, we had about $60 a ton, and now we're looking at about $100 a ton. So we've had some people ask about, given the current water levels on some of the reservoirs around West Lincoln, why aren't you removing material? Well, cost is a big thing, and also it takes a long time, a year and a half or so, and before we can get a project underway and completed. So this is just a depiction of what that 1,000 or what that amount of 2 million cubic yards would look like. We're not really into skiing in the Nebraska Game and Parks, but I guess that might be something we'd have to start if we're going to be removing that kind of material. And just to let you know, we also try to keep up on maintenance. We had some issues with this jetty at Standing Bear Reservoir where it actually sunk after the water levels came up. So we had to address that. We have another one there as well that we're going to be working on soon. And then any of the lakes that we build sediment dikes on, like Summit, Gracie, Wagon Train, and Rock Creek, try to keep up with removing sediment from those as well. So those costs do add up pretty quickly. So this gives you a little bit of an idea of the current projects that are under construction. Soldier Creek and the Carter P. Johnson Dam removal, and then we're also working on Crazy Horse. We're going to spend about $1 million. Aquatic Habitat, CMF stands for Capital Maintenance Funds, and that's funds that our parks utilizes that was authorized by the legislature. Water Smart grant helped pay for almost $2.5 million. We used an NET grant, which stands for Nebraska Environmental Trust. They've been very generous with helping us with our projects, and an EPA grant. So for $1 million, we're doing almost a $6 million project there. Smith Lake, we're going to start construction there in about a month or so. This has a little bit heavier on aquatic habitat, and then we're also using some of our federal aid dollars. Windmill, about a third of that is being paid for with aquatic habitat, getting used an NET grant and CMF dollars. And then Holmes Lake is a couple of access points. We're using about half aquatic habitat, half federal aid, and a donation as well. In design, we're working on almost ready to bid out Niobrara State Rec Area Pond, and about a third of that should be aquatic habitat, Nebraska Environmental Trust again, and CMF dollars. And then we're going to be working on a couple the Ogallala National Grasslands ponds, agate and boardgate to be specific, and we're using a U.S. Fish and Wildlife grant or a Forest Service grant, which is about 1.1 million, and then some aquatic habitat funds. So just to give you a little summary, the process of completing a project from start to finish is a minimum of 1.5 years. We've had some that have lasted almost 8 years. So it all depends on funding mechanisms. We're currently leveraging your aquatic habitat dollars about 3 times. We haven't increased the aquatic habitat stamp since 2017, even though our construction costs have increased considerably. And currently a residential annual permit is $41, in which $15 of that goes toward the aquatic habitat stamp fund. And just to go over again, the aquatic habitat stamp is really unique in the U.S. And we really appreciate your support of this program, and we're going to continue to do good work for you guys, and we're going to leverage your funds as much as we can.
But yeah, with that, really appreciate you, Jeff, for hopping on and giving a detail. I know, and you're going to hear a little bit here from the Southeast District. We've had some comments come in just about why we're not removing sediment when the drought's here and some of that sort of thing. And it's a process to get there, and then there are processes that we have to go through, and unfortunately it takes time and it takes money. So with that, really do just want to tell everybody thanks for tuning in. I know we'll have some questions coming up here, but really appreciate you guys taking the time on a nice Monday evening here and sitting in, and there's our information. Again, give us a call, email anytime you want. We're always happy to provide information. I know one thing I kind of missed here at the beginning, and most people are curious. We had about 83 people in total tuning in tonight, and so I believe that's probably higher than what we've had here in the past. So again, really appreciate it. Hope you guys tune in for the other divisions or the other areas here tonight, and Jordan Cott's going to hop on here. Jordan, I know, has been tallying up the questions, and we'll try to get to everything that you guys got.
All right, thanks, Aaron. Yeah, we got a few questions coming in, so keep those questions rolling in the chat, and we'll get to them as we can here. The first one, Aaron, had to do with the survey that you mentioned. If they've filled it out once, do you want multiple survey responses from the same folks, or just fill it out once?
I just fill it out the one time, and what I would say to that is if you got other people that you fish with and you know that they haven't filled it out, encourage friends or family to fill that out. The more responses that we can get, the better, just a better representative group that we can pull information from. So thanks for filling it out too. It sounds like you already did.
Yep. Jeff, this one will go to you. This is in regards to Burchard Lake, kind of down in the southeast corner of the state. It's one of the lakes suffering from low water. We did some work on it several years ago to repair the outlet structure, but it's suffering from some low water again. Makes it kind of tough to get boats in and out of there without damaging them. Right now, is there anything that can be done right there now other than doing a rain dance?
Rain dance would be awesome. The We did add some rock below that ramp to make it a little more accessible, but really we just need some rain to fill that up. You can launch a small boat there, but you have to be really careful. Not entirely recommended, especially if you have a nice boat. You don't want to get hurt. So
Sure. Um, Jeff, we'll stick with you. We'll go to pretty much the complete opposite end of the state. You mentioned the Soldier Creek project out at Fort Robb. Can you expand exactly where that project is on Fort Robb and just give a little more details on how that came to be?
yeah, so Soldier Creek comes off of actually the Forest Service ground to the west of Fort Robb, and then it flows all the way through the park and used to go through Carter P. Johnson. So that dam has been removed as part of that project, and then we're doing the stream restoration work on Soldier. So yeah, it pretty much flows all the way through Fort Robb.
Thanks, Jeff. Um, Aaron, I'm going to send this one to you. This is in regards to the Valentine National Wildlife Refuge and opening up more lakes to fishing and some secretarial orders from the Department of Interior. I know we've had some discussions with the refuge staff out there on opening up some more lakes to fishing. Can you just give a an update on where we're at with that?
Yeah. So U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service initiated some talks with us earlier this year, late last year, I forget when it even came through. But we have started some talks. Stuff's pretty preliminary, but we're pretty encouraged that we're gonna see some benefits to our both our anglers and our hunters. We'll see, and we'll keep everybody informed once more information comes out. We were able to get some permission this last summer from the Valentine Refuge staff to get out and actually try to sample some of those lakes that don't have any fishing access to them, that are off limits, and we were able to get in and do some preliminary looks at that stuff just in case we would be able to further some management on them. And so there's been some steps taken forward. It's just we're kind of just at a wait and see, and we'll start those talks and keep moving forward on it. So
Thanks, Aaron. Jeff, as far as you spend some time talking about kind of leveraging aquatic habitat money to really make those projects go farther, and really focusing on the lake habitat aspect of it. Can you also kind of talk about how we coordinate with the other divisions like Parks Division or possibly other entities to also try to coordinate those projects, like with camping or other entities so that we're not disturbing the park for longer than need be?
Sure. Yeah, we definitely coordinate with parks throughout these projects, and Conestoga would be a really good example. Parks did some upgrades there while we were doing that project. I know he was specifically asking about camping. You know, parks funding is completely separated from our funding, so they probably have their own schedule or own areas of what are important to them or where they need to do upgrades. So that might be a little bit separate, but we're currently working together with parks and using some of the CMF funding that they're using, on Niobrara, on the Soldier Creek project, and as well as Windmill. And they have done some improvements at Windmill. While I've been working there, they had a lot of ash trees that need to be removed. They took that opportunity to get that done. They also put up a playground there while we were while we were working there. So there is some coordination, just maybe not so much in the camping realm.
Sure. Thank you, Jeff. We got some questions about boating access, and so I'm going to bring on Zach Horseman, who's our boating access coordinator, to help address some of these. Um, First one has to deal with a little bit of funding and asking if all watercraft needed licenses, such as paddleboards and kayaks and that sort of thing, if that would help maintain and improve access in that regard. So take
Yep.
it away, Zach.
Yep. So that's something we've been evaluating through our R3 efforts, which is the recruit, retain, reactivate groups we have going for boating. And so that's actually ran through the DMV. They collect a lot of that cash. And so in order to actually do that for kayaks and other non-motorized vessels, it's actually a little bit cost prohibitive at this time. We just wouldn't be gaining enough to make that justifiable. And so at this time, we're still evaluating it a little bit over the year. But at this point, it doesn't look like that would be the best approach right now. And so, but yeah, I know some states around us do take that approach. So we're still evaluating it.
All right, thanks. And then, similar to Jeff's program, can you just talk about how you partner with other entities such as the NRDs and other towns, villages, cities, that sort of thing, to make your dollars go farther when it comes to getting folks on the water?
Yep. So a lot of those projects in Omaha that we've been doing recently, with just flood control reservoirs, working with Papio, are a good example of how those partnerships work. And we leverage their match for those projects for sport fish restoration dollars to just make that money go further. And we utilize their cash on top of those grants to help with boating access. And so anytime there's a partnership that pops up, or an NRD or a city area or a county reaches out, we really take those in consideration. And a lot of times they'll raise in priority for us if we can kind of leverage that cash. So
Thanks. Aaron, I'm going to direct this one at you. So Two Rivers a few years ago had cut bows stocked along with the rainbows. Uh, are there any plans for cut bows going in there with the rainbows this year and into the future?
Yeah, so we're evaluating that. We started stocking cut bows here a year or two ago, and from a hatchery standpoint, they've been really successful. They're a little less temperamental than the rainbow. They're a little more disease resistant, and they feed really well. And so getting growth on them and raising them has been easier. And so we're currently, in this spring, we're going to be doing some evaluations on cut bows versus rainbows. But there'll be a mix again in Two Rivers of cut bows and rainbows, and as well as Lake Ogallala. And so, you know, the reasoning for it is because from a hatchery standpoint, they've been easier to raise than rainbows. We're just evaluating that catchability, and so far seems to be pretty similar to the rainbow trout. So yeah, I guess if you got opinions on it, please let us know.
Thank you. Can you also, Aaron, touch on the state creeling that's been going on, and talk a little bit about sentiments that we've been getting from anglers throughout the state, good, bad, or otherwise?
Yeah, you know, from our creel data, we don't necessarily get a whole lot of sentiment other than just on some of the questions we ask. However, we haven't had a lot of complaints that have come in. Usually, if people are unhappy, that's usually made pretty clear to the person who's doing the creel, and I haven't heard a lot of that. However, just kind of on another side of things, and maybe this is where this question is coming from. Well, we did send out our statewide angler survey this year to 10,000 anglers, and I'm sure some of you online got that, but there will be some some of those sorts of questions on that. But as always, with everything, we're going to have issues that pop up, and some fisheries are kind of in a constant state of up and down, and we're going to have good years at a water body, and some years it might not be as good. But I think the sentiment I think the sentiment is good, and that's why we have public meetings like the ones we're having this whole week. Is we want to hear from our anglers, and this is one of the ways that we allow anglers to do that. And there's always things that we can improve on, and we want to improve where we can, and make fishing the best for everybody, because we everybody within the fisheries division, we want to go out and catch fish probably just as bad, if not worse, than a lot of our anglers. And so want to try to provide and strive to make it the best that we possibly can.
The individual, he had a follow-up here. What about live scopes and the effect on fish populations with using live imaging sonar?
Sure. Yeah, that's a hot topic across the nation right now. And a lot of the work that's been done in especially when it comes to some crappie or some other panfish is we've seen catch rates can increase, but the amount of harvest is really not much different than those not using live scope. We've done a little bit of evaluation within the fisheries division, and it's pretty similar findings. Our issue is we just didn't have quite a large enough sample size to really make a difference. But there's a ton of information that's being collected across the Midwest and really across the nation right now on live imaging sonar. And so, we're trying to stay up to date with it as much as we possibly can. And again, I know there's been a sentiment of we're asking these questions on creoles if they use live scope because we want to ban them. And really the sentiment is we're trying to make the most informed decisions that we possibly can, backed by science. And that's what we're still doing. There's nothing in the immediate future or anything like that we're looking to regulate any of this, but we also want to try to learn what's actually happening, and not just in our state, but across the nation. So yeah, just right now it's sentiment is there's not a whole lot of difference other than you can catch a lot more fish. So
Thank you. Zach, I'm going to bring you on board, and Jeff, if you got anything, jump in on this as well. Zach, can you speak about the upgrades that are being planned at Lake McConaughey?
Yeah, so a lot of this stems still from the Star Wars projects that have been carried out on the marina out there. The funding's been significantly reduced, but recently the governor's approved some road projects out there on the south side of the lakes, and one of those road accesses is going to be on Burma Road. So hopefully they can get in there and pave some of that, and hopefully improve the parking area on the south side there at Divers Bay. And then as far as boating access on the north side, Game and Parks is looking at potentially doing a low water access on the north side. So we're trying to evaluate that currently, and then get into the RFP process that Jeff was actually talking about earlier, to evaluate larger scale process or projects out there on the north side of the lake. So that's still a year or two out to get like an actual improvement project, but we are evaluating it, and we're trying to do the best we can and coordinate that with the dam replacement out there.
Thank you, Zach. And Aaron, I'll send this one to you. This is the last question we have right now. I know this is a lake near and dear to your heart. Talk about the catfishing up at Willow Creek.
yeah, and I'm not sure. I don't know if there's a further explanation on that. I mean, there is catfishing at Willow Creek. It's been pretty darn good. of one thing, if you're talking Willow Creek SRA up by Pierce, catfishing should continue to be pretty good up there for the foreseeable future. I don't know, Jordan, was there any more information on that or just wondering about catfishing on it?
That's all I got. Sorry.
Yeah, as far as the catfishing, it's been a good cat fishery here for a while. I would assume it's going to continue to be.
And with that, I have no other questions at this time, so I'm going to turn it back
Okay.
over to Aaron and Jeff.
Yeah, no, I mean, we got just a couple more minutes here. If anybody's got anything that they want answered, if not, again, really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to sit in and listen to us, and hopefully you learned a little bit out of this, and hopefully you sign up for the other district meetings. Going to be a lot of good information presented here over the next 5 meetings, and I know the biologists and the district supervisors in those areas we're always looking to engage with our anglers, and so great opportunity, and not only for you but for us, and so really look forward to seeing you the rest of the week.